Time management is a huge chunk of the productivity advice that we're constantly fed, whether that's having the perfect morning routine, creating the perfect to-do list or planning system, meal prepping, using the Pomodoro technique or calendar blocking. The list is endless. Productivity gurus share these techniques with us and make us feel like we can get control of our time, like we can get everything done. And I've tried a lot of these techniques and I've come to realize that this is an absolute lie. No time management technique will ever truly work, and I don't even feel like I need to tell you that, because if you had found the perfect time management technique, you wouldn't still be watching productivity videos or reading productivity books. So I'm guessing that you, like me, struggle to truly get on top of things, and there's a reason for that. In today's video, I want to talk about some of the problems that time management advice fails to address, a concept which could change everything, and how we can use this concept to help better our relationship with time. What does time management advice fail to tell us? I feel like in the past year, I've really been reflecting on my relationship with productivity, and I've realised a few things. There will always be more to do. I've been really obsessed in the past with things like inbox zero, or having the perfect planner or pen or Notion setup, or having a good getting things done system. But do you know what the problem with these things are? They will always build back up. There's never going to be a point where your inbox stays at zero, so even when you empty your inbox, you're going to get new emails. There's not going to be a point where you don't have more to-dos to add to your to-do list, even when you finish everything. And I think that's just the reality of adult life.
Welcome to the real world! It sucks! You're gonna love it.
I don't think we will ever reach that magical point where everything stays empty and we have nothing else to do. The other problem that we have is we keep pushing the goalposts further and further and further. So for example, I wanted to start doing yoga every day, and great, I did that. But then I added another goal to start drawing every day. The problem is we can always do more or be more or see more, but it's really hard to then stay on top of things because you're increasing the pile that you need to stay on top of. We can't do everything. So moving on from that point of pushing the goalpost further, I think one of the problems that we have is life has given us so many possibilities. We could learn to play a new instrument, or learn a new language, or go running every day, or see every country in the world. There are so many skills for us to acquire, or people that we could get to know or date, or things that we can see or do. We've been presented with endless options, but the problem is we won't be able to do all of it. And this is something that I really struggle to come to terms with, because I'm somebody who gets excited by new things. So I might add something into my routine and then see something else that I really want to learn and get really excited by it, but it's really difficult to stay on top of that. At some point, I've really had to realize and try to accept that maybe it's not doable. Maybe I won't be an amazing cook. Maybe I won't learn another language. Maybe I won't be able to play an instrument or be incredible at yoga and drawing and everything else that I want to do. I feel like productivity advice has really failed to give us this reality check. Instead, it really misleads us into believing that if we did have a perfect time management system, then maybe we could get on top of everything. Maybe we could try everything that we want to try. But no man or no woman has ever been able to do everything. So neither will we. We have to be a little bit more selective with what we do. We forget to keep time management advice in perspective. How time management advice looks to me will be very different to how it looks to you. It will look completely different to someone who is juggling kids, or who is chronically ill, or who has no family support to lean on. These groups of people might still struggle with time management, even if they adopted every single time management technique known to man. And for good reason. I feel like productivity advice and productivity gurus fail to talk about this, but I think it's really important. My nurse at work always makes a point that I do yoga every day, and I always come in bringing in my own lunch. I think that she feels bad about it, and I think a lot of us do feel like our self-worth is tied into how much we do. But I always have to remind her that 1, I work part-time, and 2, I don't have kids. It's actually really easy for me to make the time to make my own meals and to do yoga compared to her. And I feel like I've really started to take things with a pinch of salt these days. Ever since I started working part-time, I've realized how much easier it is to get things done when you're actually at home. So when you see those YouTubers or those authors talking about how they've read 100 books in a year, or how they type really fast, you have to ask whether that would actually fit into your life. Is it realistic for you? Now, I'm not trying to say anything against productivity gurus or their advice, but I'm starting to realize that we can't always look to others for advice when they're not in our shoes. Only you know what's on your plate, or what you're juggling, or how you're feeling. Some people have more flexibility in their lives than others do. That's a fact. And I think it's something that's really worth remembering when we look at other people. There's also so much that we don't have control over. In theory, if you did have the perfect time management system, there would still be things that would set you back. So I remember last year, I was so on top of YouTube videos, and I had such a great system for it. I think I was ahead by about 2 weeks. And then I caught COVID and I was ill for 2 weeks and I couldn't do anything. And to this day, I'm still trying to catch up on myself. It could even be way simpler. It could be that someone just asked you if you want to go to the cinema, but you've already blocked out your calendar perfectly to get everything done, and saying yes means that you'd have to move things around. But why wouldn't you? As John Lennon once said, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. The other thing that we have to remember is that we're humans, not robots, which means that we have to deal with emotions and mental states. So you might be too tired to get things done, or too restless, or you're having a bad day that you don't want to think about anything, or maybe you receive some good news, which means that you're so excited that you're finding it hard to focus. I feel like time management advice doesn't tend to take these things into account. So a lot of these problems that I've talked about relate to the fact that we have a limited amount of time on Earth. This is something that I read about in the book 4,000 Weeks. The average human lifespan is absurdly, terrifyingly, insultingly short. Here's one way of putting things in perspective. The first modern humans appeared on the plains of Africa at least 200,000 years ago, and scientists estimate that life, in some form, will persist for another 1.5 billion years or more. But you, assuming you live to be 80, you'll have had about 4,000 weeks. When I first read that 4,000 weeks is how long most of us would live for, I was honestly shocked. Obviously, I know the average in terms of years, but hearing it in weeks really helped put things into perspective. And that's what this book is about. It's basically about how productivity advice fails to take into account how short life is. So why is this significant? Because if productivity gurus took into account how short life is, would they really encourage us to spend our precious time on Earth trying to get to inbox zero? The book also argues that it's our relationship with having a limited time which causes us to get distracted, to procrastinate, to get FOMO, and to get overwhelmed. Our time on Earth is really short, and ironically, knowing that and remembering that can actually help us to have a better relationship with time. So how can we use this to help with our time management? Realize that you can't get everything done, and then decide what you really want to do. Do you remember that story about a teacher who brings in a glass jar and she challenges her kids to fill it with some rocks, some pebbles, and some sand? The solution was to put in the big rocks first, then the pebbles, and then the sand. And this story is meant to represent how we should do the most important things first to make room for the smaller things. This story has always made so much sense to me, but then in the book 4,000 Weeks, Oliver Burkeman made a really good point, which is that the teacher brought in only big rocks that she already knew would fit in the jar. If she brought any more big rocks with her, they wouldn't have fit, but she brought the exact number required to fit in the jar. She understood the limitations of that jar, but the problem is, we don't. We think that we can get everything done, so we keep trying to fit big rocks into our jar. So how do we decide on which big rocks do matter to us? Well, Warren Buffett famously gave some advice to his pilot about this. So the advice was to write down a list of 25 goals, things that you want to do. Arrange them in order from most important to least, and then circle the top 5 goals. These are the ones that you should organise your time around. You're probably thinking that the other 20 goals you can work on later, but these aren't goals that have secondary importance. Instead, you want to cross out these other 20 goals, because these aren't goals that are high enough priority to be in your top 5, but they are goals that are seductive enough to distract you from the ones that truly matter. This has been really life-changing for me because I can be a bit of a scatterbrain, so I get really excited by doing loads of different things, and that's evident by the fact that I've signed up for a yoga course, 2 art courses, and a writing course all in the same year. I really want to do so many different things, but I've had to accept that I actually can't do that. It's overwhelming trying to have my head everywhere, and it's probably better for me to focus on just a few core things. Stop waiting for a time in the future to be happy. When I was at university, I had this mindset where all I wanted to do was study and get to the point where I graduated. I said to myself, if I put in all the work and all the time now, it means later on I can have way more fun. But the problem with this mindset is I was really trying to just get through a period of time to get to a more fulfilling point in the future. I don't feel like I really enjoyed university, and that's time that I'm never going to get back. Again, the book 4,000 Weeks illustrates this perfectly by reminding us of those people that go to concerts and spend the whole time recording the whole thing on their phone. They're more concerned by collecting memories that they can look back on at a later date than they are actually enjoying that present moment. But the issue is our time is limited, so we only have a limited number of present moments. If we keep putting them off for the future, then eventually we're going to run out and realise that we never actually lived for now. Have boundaries with the things that you do. I sometimes spend an entire day editing a YouTube video, and editing YouTube videos does take a really long time, but one of the problems that I have is I set no constraints for myself. I let it take as long as it needs to take, and I let it feed into other times where I'd rather be doing something else, like cooking or spending time with my husband. Another problem that I have is I start multiple things on the go and I don't always finish them off. The problem with both of these things is it feeds into this belief that I have that I can get everything done when I know I can't. I've realised that I have to have boundaries and set constraints, whether that means having a cut-off point for where I can't do something anymore or only having a certain number of projects on the go at the same time. It means that I'm actually able to embrace this idea of limitation and the fact that I can't do everything, and that will help me take the pressure off myself. Do nothing. This may seem counterintuitive. After all, you've only got 4,000 weeks to live. Surely you should be trying to fill that with as much as possible, right? Wrong. Oliver Burkeman argues that a lot of the problems that we face today are because we struggle to accept our limited amount of time. We want to make the most of our lives and we want to be fulfilled, so we think that we have to do as much as possible to get there. But the problem is, the world has so much on offer, we won't even get close. Instead, if we stop, if we embrace doing nothing, it means that we can defeat that pressure that we have to control time or hurry time or optimize our time. We can just be in the moment instead of stressing or hurrying or trying to be productive all the time. Instead, we can just simply be. I've really reevaluated my relationship with time, and I feel like it's given me a healthier perspective when it comes to productivity. And if you're someone who struggles to get on top of things, I really recommend the book 4,000 Weeks, which goes into a lot of this in more detail. And with that, I'm off to do nothing. I'll see you guys in the next one.